Yeah, I know I'm like, what, 3 weeks late on this now, but let's go ahead, wrap up our 2023 season. We're going to cover our last clutch of the year, and I'm going to go over 5 things I learned in my second year breeding ball pythons. What's up, everybody? I'm Jim with Straight Blast Pythons. Welcome to the channel. Like I said, we're going to wrap up 2023 here. I got one clutch to show you and 5 lessons learned from our second year breeding ball pythons. A couple of housekeeping things really quick though. Obviously, I've been absent for a little while. Kind of look like a bum now. Decided I'm going to grow up my hair, grow up my beard since I'm a civilian now. See how long that lasts. I don't know. Either I'm going to be able to put it to a ponytail or I'm going to go nuts and shave it all off first. We'll see. Only time will tell. So just kind of addressing my absence. I was off social media here, at least on YouTube, for what, 2, maybe almost 3 months now. I got pretty sick. Figured I'd skip a week or two making videos because I was coughing really bad, struggling to actually put coherent videos together. Just as I was healing up from that, I hurt my knee pretty bad. I was having trouble walking. And before I even healed from that, I got sick again. That kid loop, they get sick, bring it home, you get sick, they get sick, you get sick. It just never ends. That time I wound up being diagnosed with atypical pneumonia. I was really at a point where I couldn't even talk without going into coughing fits. So YouTube kind of just got put to the wayside. Took a little bit of an overall social media hiatus for a couple weeks after that. I'll talk about that later in this video and the lessons learned stuff. But is what it is. I'm back here now. Let's roll right into this clutch. All right, so clutch number 4. Spoiler for some of this stuff, talking about 2023 later, but this whole year has kind of been a shit show or a failure, however you want to look at it, as far as breeding is concerned. And this clutch really was no different. Our pairing here was our pastel yellow belly genetic stripe, possible het VPI exanthic boy. His name's Striker. We got him from Black Dahlia, and we paired him to an orange dream het genetic stripe that we picked up right at the beginning of the season. So we picked up this girl right at the beginning of the breeding season, and she was a little bit on the smaller side. She was right around 1,350 grams. And okay, some people might not think that that's that small, but she was a 2019 hatchling, so you would have expected her to be a bit larger by now. She was eating fine, got her up over that 1,400 grams, and I paired her once thinking, hey, she's going to kick in, really start getting ravenous, the normal stuff, that one lock to get them eating, but all it took was that one lock, and she suddenly went off food again. So she was not quite as big as I was hoping she would be. I usually try to get my girls closer to 1,500 before actually even starting the pairing. This was kind of a less common instance as far as from what I've done historically to date, but you know what? She went. Small clutch, she gave us 3 eggs, 1 slug, so 3 good eggs. It is what it is. But that's where things got interesting because we had an incubation conflict. So I didn't have any eggs in the incubator. I didn't foresee anything coming in the near future. My wife is also breeding. She breeds various species of geckos and some colubrids, specifically garter snakes and corn, stuff like that. But she had some gecko eggs that needed incubation, so she commandeered the incubator, shifted the temperatures around. And for those of you guys that don't know, most geckos don't incubate around the same temperature the ball pythons do. In this case, this was velvet geckos, and they incubate significantly lower. So I really had to figure out a way to incubate these eggs. I thought about maternal incubation, but this girl wasn't really wrapping them very well. And after asking around a little bit, I was recommended a makeshift form of incubation. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy into it right now because I didn't want to build a whole incubator for just one clutch, and I didn't want to have to wait for shipping and everything to get an incubator because none of the local stores had anything in stock that I was able to find, at least, to just grab that same day. So I'm going to actually do another video completely on how we incubated those eggs, but it actually worked out really well. I don't know if I'd do it again, but it did. One of those eggs did go bad in the incubation. I'm not going to blame the type of incubation itself. It kind of had weak veins to begin with. It might have just gone bad. It might have been incubation. I don't know. Temps were pretty steady, so I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not blaming it on that either. So ultimately, we wound up with a 2-egg clutch. Like I said, pairing was a pastel yellow belly genetic stripe, possible het VPI xanthic to an orange dream het genetic stripe. So let's just jump straight into these two. So the first one in the clutch, 230401, is an orange dream genetic stripe. Now, I have had a few breeders that are a little bit more experienced to me suggest she may also be yellow belly. There is yellow belly in the father of the clutch. He is, like I said, pastel yellow belly. The yellow belly on him displays in a bit more broken up pattern and flaming on the sides, whereas she only has these little ticks on her. I don't think that is an indication of the yellow belly, because I've seen a number of other Orange Dream genetic stripes that have the same marking on the side that are not yellow belly. I'm just IDing her as what I can see for sure as OD genetic stripe. There's always that possibility to have VPI, but there's no proof on that yet, so OD stripe. The only other one to come out of the clutch, 230402, is the het version of her in a male form. So he is an Orange Dream het genetic stripe. So we missed out on the pastel and the yellow belly completely in this clutch as far as I could see. OD stripe, OD het stripe. Not quite a miraculous end of the season, but you know what? At least we came up with a visual recessive animal this year, since none of our clown or krypton stuff went. I guess there's a silver lining to something, right? All right, so what I think most of you guys are actually here for, lessons learned. So last year I did a 5 lessons learned from my first year of breeding ball pythons. And this is something I'm going to try to do every year, to just kind of little bits and pieces, or maybe not little, maybe not major, just stuff that sticks out to me from the year. And if it helps you guys, cool. If it's repeat information, cool, whatever, is what it is. So these aren't in any particular order of importance, but I did order them the way that I did because a couple of them kind of roll into each other, lessons that relate. And also at the same time, a couple of them are kind of like 2-in-1s, so maybe cheating there. Just bear with me on this. It's kind of a rough list, all right? Lesson number 1, don't get cocky. You will make mistakes. So my first year, so 2022, went fairly well. We hit like almost everything we were trying to hit target animal wise. I didn't have any identification issues, you know. Even though it was my first year, I was pretty on point with all my IDs. I had 1 or 2 people that I was able to reach out to that were, you know, really experienced in the industry, that were confirming all my IDs. I hit everything spot on. That was awesome. This year, you know, not even going into the whole not hitting any of the target animals thing, but I made some stupid mistakes, and really a lot of it does come out to being cocky. Identification specifically was, you know, one that I made some dumb moves on. So story time about that. So earlier this year, we were on one of the holdback auctions, and by we I mean myself and my wife Emily. She's Garden of Gardens and Geckos. It was in the middle of our move. We weren't really set up. Our video and audio was terrible, and you know, I highly doubt Jessica actually watches my videos, but if you do, I apologize about that. I think our presentation there was very unprofessional. If we ever do have a chance to be back on there again in the future, will be better. But at the same time, like I said, we were kind of in the middle of a move. I was rushing through things, and I had a couple of animals that I mis-ID'd. And you know, mis-IDing an animal isn't necessarily the end of the world unless you're jumping on to an auction online with a lot of big names and you're mis-IDing animals. So I had 2 hatchlings from one of the clutches. The pairing was Mojave Enchi Fire female to that same pastel yellow belly G-stripe male that sired the clutch I just showed off. But I had 2 animals in there that I ID'd as Pistave combos, so pastel Enchi combos. And you know, this goes into a little bit of the whole theoretical ID thing, but I was also quick IDing and I didn't double check myself, which is why I'm saying don't get cocky. Those animals don't have pastel in them at all, so they were actually mochi combos. And the reason I identified them the way that I did was because when they came out, they were very yellow. And I do have a mochi animal, again, that Mojave Enchi Fire, in my collection, but the difference, because she has such a bright line of fire, I never saw her as a hatchling. I purchased her as an adult. So this goes back to that knowledge base and that research. And I asked around on one Discord that I'm a part of to try to confirm the identities on these, you know, just, hey, is this what you think it is? And I kind of didn't really get much of a response. I didn't go back and double check with the people that I checked with last year on my IDs, and I went on a live podcast for an auction, and I mis-ID'd 2 animals. And it's one thing to mis-ID an animal as long as you don't actually wind up selling it and screwing over a customer. It's a completely other thing to go on, you know, the internet with 50 to 100 people watching and make an idiot of yourself mis-IDing an animal. So, like I said, you will make mistakes. Some of them might be at a stupid level like I did. Jessica even went back and commented once or twice about how Enchi and Mojave react together, and I think she was kind of trying to give me a hint that I mis-ID'd it, and I just completely doubled down on it. Whatever. Like I said, I was an idiot, made a mistake. It will happen. Happens to the best of you. My mistake there was rushing through the ID when I initially ID'd it, not double checking myself, and then even though I kind of doubted my ID, I ran with it anyway just because of all the chaos that was going on in my life around it. I looked like an idiot, I got cocky, won't happen again. Okay, second up, also going to kind of come with the story, but all these other breeders that you watch in YouTube land out there, whether it be the big podcasters, the big name breeders, people who've been in the industry for 2-3 years or for 20 plus years, they're all just real people. That's lesson number 2. And I met a lot of cool people this year. Really expanded my network. We were at both Tinley's this last year. We went to a bunch of different shows, meeting a whole bunch of breeders in the Chicagoland area here, and a couple of people that run like the podcast and stuff. Really enjoyed networking. But some people do that fanboy thing, and it's funny because I met Justin Kabilka, met Bob Vood, Garrick DeMeyer, these bigger guys, and it's like whatever, just talking to them like regular people. But oddly enough, the people that run the podcast that you sit here and actually watch their videos all the time, I don't know, maybe it was just me, it kind of clicked different. So I had a chance to meet Adam from Proper Royals over in Tinley this last fall, and whatever, introduced myself to him. I've talked to him before on the phone and stuff like that, but never met him in person. Initial meeting, whatever, it's cool. We were breaking down at the last day of Tinley, and I just kind of went up to him, kind of like, hey, nice to get a chance meeting you. Look forward to doing it again. Maybe talk future, maybe do something online together, and kind of went back and forth. And I think that I approached him being like, hey, it was great meeting you 5 or 6 times. And I don't know why or what it was. Maybe it was just kind of one of those hey man, guy I watch all the time kind of fanboying. Who knows? I don't know. Adam, again, don't think you watch my videos. If you do, I probably came off like an idiot. I'm sure you were just sitting there who the hell is this guy? Based on my knowledge of Adam's love for efficiency, probably wasting his time or something. But you know what? Real people, I don't know. I was dumb. Lesson learned, right? Moving on. All right, so lesson number 3. I commented earlier in the video, a little bit about social media hiatus, and yeah, I did take one, and there's actually a reason behind that. While I was, getting over being sick and stuff like that, I spent a lot of time just watching on social media, browsing, Instagram, stuff like that. A lot of YouTube. Earlier in the year, actually, it was really late in 2022, I realized, my collection wasn't really going where it needed to go, and I needed to make some major changes, start doing some reconfiguration of the collection, and I did start doing that early in the year. As time went on, talking to more people, especially, following Tinley in the fall when I got to really sit down and talk to a bunch of people, I realized there was a lot more changes that I needed to make than I thought there was, and I kind of got to one of those points where it's you start looking at these other people's collections and where they're going, people that have been in a lot longer than you, and people who've been in, around a similar amount of time to you. And I don't know, that discouragement kind of sets in. You start thinking man, how am I going to get there? My collection is not where it needs to be. You start realizing the reality of where you are versus where you thought you were. And like I said, it's discouraging. It's really disheartening. And I kind of got to a point where I wasn't enjoying looking at my collection, and I was spending all this time just rethinking, how can I change what I'm doing with what I have, not really thinking about, what you really got to do to fix the collection. You got to get rid of animals, you got to get new stuff in, to really focus the collection. And like I said, it's just discouraging. And I decided the best thing to do was take a little bit of a social media break. I really stepped away from watching YouTube, checking Instagram, posting stuff for about 2 weeks. And it made a really big difference. So kind of just the lesson learned here is you start getting discouraged. A lot of people I've heard talk about man, how will I ever get my collection on par with some of these ones that I look at? Some of these ones that you see online, these bigger guys. You got to think about the fact that a lot of them either A, doing it a lot longer, or B, invested a lot more money. And if you're like me, I'm like I said, 3 years in as far as breeding now. I've only been keeping for about 4.5, 5, at least on any sort of real scale. And I don't got that money. I'm building from the ground up just like a lot of people out there are. And, I understand that discouragement. So my piece of advice is, you ever start feeling like that, step away from the social media. And this can be, all different aspects of life, but at least in the ball pythons, your collection, step away, start enjoying your collection again, then move back into the social media. Honestly, that couple of week break, helped a lot and really allowed me to figure out what I'm doing and actually come up with a plan for my collection, in a much clearer state of mind than where I was before, just bouncing around. I cannot recommend anything better than taking a social media break when you start to feel that way. All right, so number 4 is following on that idea of revamping the collection, and I've talked about this a couple times this year, and it's also kind of a cheat because it is sort of something what I talked about in my lessons learned last year, but you gotta have a solid plan. And like last year I talked more about like how you're gonna sell, how you're gonna market, stuff like that, but you have to have a solid plan for your collection if you actually want to like seriously breed. Whether it be, just a side income, be a true business, like if you want to really start producing anything that people would consider desirable. And I say that not saying that, the pet quality snakes, the lower end stuff is not desirable. They're still awesome animals. I'm talking from business standpoint, from, a more serious hobby standpoint. You have to focus your collection if you really, really want to excel in a project. After Tinley, having talked to a bunch of people, really after taking that social media break, really looking at it, I realized my collection was nowhere near where I thought it was going to be direction-wise. I've got a path moving into 2024, which is really, really going to focus it into like the multi-recessive clown combos, as well as just getting into the stronger clown combos in general. You're going to start adding things from there, but really, really set up a solid base for your collection before you start like really diving into buying these high-end animals. And my thought was, get a couple of multi-recessive animals and that will refocus the collection, and it will to an extent, but it will once the offspring grow up, or once you spend a lot of money to buy the females to go with the expensive males, or vice versa. And if you're trying to, like I said, build it from the ground up or build it in a path that really animals aren't out there for, you have to be really focused. And that's a mistake a lot of people make about not paying attention to where they're going or doing the impulse buys. And I was really bad about that early on. And I learned that last year, but it's really coming into fruition this year, where a lot of things in my collection are going to be changing over the next 6 to 12 months. Lesson learned, I can't stress this enough, have a serious plan on where you want to go as a breeder. I was about to move into lesson 5, but I want to just add to that, have a plan, but be focused, be disciplined on the plan. Do not buy anything that does not fit your plan. I mean, yeah, there's beautiful animals all over the place, but you need to really focus on where you want to go. Cannot stress this enough. Had to add that in there. Be disciplined. However you have to do that. Make a sheet of what you're trying to find, spreadsheets, priority sheets, lists, whatever you want to do. Have a way to be able to look at an animal and be like, yes, this fits the plan. No, it doesn't. All right, off that soapbox and on to lesson number 5. All right, lesson number 5 is going to be really hypocritical after what I just said for lesson number 4, but it's odds are fickle. They can go one way or they can go the other. You can get everything you want to get, like I got in 2022, or you can just kind of miss out on everything like 2023. You have to have a plan, but you have to be adaptable. You have to understand that this is all gambling. It's a game of odds. There are ways to stack the deck in your favor, but that all involves having those more powerful animals, either spending more on your initial investment or just breeding to get to the point where you can stack those odds. But ultimately, it's always odds. There's always a chance you don't hit. There's always a chance that you have a girl that slugs out, you lose eggs in incubation, you have non-viable babies. There's always a chance that the odds go against you. So as much as I emphasized for number 4 to have a plan, my lesson for number 5 is to be adaptable. And I'm saying that because that's all 2023 was for me, was adapting the plan, adapting the collection, adapting where I want to go with the collection. You gotta be able to roll with things in this industry. Not even just in like what your plan is for right now. You could have a 5-year plan. Industry trends change. You know, you might see a new gene that comes out next year that shifts everything. You have to be able to change kind of on the fly what you want to do while still maintaining that discipline and that project focus that we talked about in lesson number 4. Okay, I think I've rambled enough, so we're going to kind of go ahead and wrap it up here. But like I said, 2023, from the perspective of breeding, is a shit show. Last year I showed holdbacks. I can't show holdbacks because, to be honest, while I am keeping 2 animals, they're not holdbacks for my collection. I'm keeping them because my daughter asked for her own snakes, so I'm keeping 2 of them so she can kind of get herself into the hobby. Outside of that, everything's going. No holdbacks. So like I said, 2023, you know, it was a wash, is what it is. I don't really know what else to say about it other than thank you guys for sticking with me for 2023 and my erratic posting schedule. I do plan to be better into 2024. Next video is going to be coming out in about a week's time is going to be what my plans are for 2024, not necessarily breeding wise, even though a lot of my pairings plans did change since I posted those videos. But as far as what I plan to do business wise moving into 2024, how I plan to approach social media, and honestly just some goals that I'm going to set for myself so that way I can hold accountability. Like I said, that'll be next week's video. If you got anything you want to see, want to have me talk about, any ideas you might have for stuff that you might want to hear my thoughts on, please post them in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you guys all did have a great 2023, and I wish you the best for this upcoming 2024 season. I'll see you next time.